Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're getting started with this learning adventure. We're doing the JavaScript 30. If you want to follow along, I suggest you go ahead and sign up for it. Head on over there, and I recommend watching the videos. They're very informative. He runs through everything. I'm going to just go into a little bit more detail, which I have found has helped me along the way to better understand JavaScript functionality. All right. First off, we're just going to go ahead and pull up the program here. I've already finished it. I'm just going to run through the functionality of it. Going through the tedium of typing everything out isn't going to help you learn. We want to take advantage of our time so that we can spend more time learning and less time just copying lines. So just a quick overview of what we have here, and I'll pull it up so you can take a look at it in the live server. Be sure to live server preview. It's a wonderful tool. We have built a drum kit. And if you just step through here with the keys, just like that. All right. So in the HTML here, we have our styles link, basic setup. If you don't know HTML or don't know CSS, I highly recommend heading over to the Free Code Camp. It's a great resource for getting started into it, and you need to know HTML and CSS to take advantage of JavaScript. So right here, this is going to be the bulk of everything that we're doing just contained within the body here. We have this div class keys, and it's currently housing all of our individual key class divs. And down here, we also have our audio elements. So let's just take a closer look at the divs specifically. And right here inside with our individual keys, we're using a data key attribute, which is something that I learned while doing this project, and it is just a very useful attribute to get away from having to use a bunch of hyper-specific IDs. It is a custom data attribute used to store information about HTML elements, and custom data attributes in HTML are generally prefixed with data, as you can see right here, and we've just called it our key. And it can be used to store any data that's not necessarily required by an HTML specification. So in this case, we're using this for our divs and our audio elements so that we can link them together. As you can see here, the first example of data key 65 corresponds to our first audio file. And as for what that number means, we're using JavaScript key code numbers. Anytime you press a key on your keyboard, there is a corresponding number within JavaScript. So for instance, when you press down A in JavaScript, that key code number is 65. Alternatively, we could use a complex system of specific IDs, or using classes, or even using inline JavaScript, but using data keys just makes it more streamlined, easier to read, and just easier to do in general. Now that's pretty much everything as far as our HTML. We're going to go over and take a look at the JavaScript now. So starting off, the thing that I took away from this was actually this bit right here. It's the coolest thing that I have found so far as I'm learning all of this, just because I have spent so much time adding event listeners to specific elements. And here, rather than having to sit there and go key number 1, add event listener, we are creating an array that contains all of our div elements, and then iterating this function across all of the elements in that array to add the event listener. So right here, we're declaring a new variable, and that variable is going to be an array from document using document query select to target the key ID. Then for our newly declared keys variable, we iterate through this array with a for each method. And then for every key element within that array, we're adding an event listener that listens for transitioned and then removes the transition. So right here we have an event listener on the window element, which is just a general element representing the entire browser as a whole. And it's just a key down to initiate our play sound function up here. And our play sound function has a single parameter, which is right here as E. Now, inside of it, we have a few local variables that we declare. Our audio, just using a query selector to call in our audio elements from our HTML. And right here, it's the structure of this audio calling in from the data key, whatever the key code that is brought up by this key down event, which would be, for instance, if we press A, then the key code that is brought up from that key down event is 65, corresponding to our clap. And then we have our key, document query selector, same method, just corresponding to the div that contains our key over here. And right here, this isn't necessary for this, but it's there to check to make sure that an audio element does exist for the key down event. So press A, audio element exists. Press Q, nothing exists. Right here is just a little bit of debugging earlier. So once the play sound is initiated, then we add the playing class to our key elements. And this is for up here when we to deal with our transition, because if you open up our CS or Cascade, we have a transform, add a color, and that right there is just, while that exists, it has the playing class. And then once the transformation is ended, the script removes the playing class and sets it back to normal. Yeah. Just cut this out for a second. We don't get that transformation. So, for instance, right here, if we just removed this little declaration right here for a second, you can see now this has been given the playing status, or the playing class, permanently. And that just works across everything. But put that right back. And since transition is finished, once that transformation has finished, the playing class is removed. Now, continuing on to this little piece right here, this is in case you initiate the sound prior to the audio file finishing. It will cut it off and re-initiate the sound. So if you just remove this right here, for instance, for a second, but if I just press this very quickly, sound's not playing every time I press. We finish off this function by calling the play function on our audio element. And that is it. Playing around with this has given me a lot of ideas on how I can make code a lot more streamlined, a lot less bulky. Frankly, before I did this project, if I had tried to make something like this, my declarations alone at the start, just adding event listeners and calling up key 1, key 2, key 3, would be more lines of code than this entire script at present. So that's about it for now. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. We can discuss them and learn together. And as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's have fun learning together.